So let's dive into this, right? So I think, and again, everything I'm going to be saying right now is my opinion. It's not the opinion of anybody else. It's 100% my opinion, right? So this has been something that's bothered me for probably since this whole Facebook fiasco started almost a year ago, maybe even more than a year ago, with Congress and Zuckerberg having to testify and all the data privacy issues, right? And so I think like I wanted to kind of open a forum and get feedback from others, from people that are other marketing professionals, people that are users of the platform, and just hear everyone's thoughts and opinions on this. Because for me, like, here's what gets frustrating, right? As somebody that does both, as somebody that grows businesses by running paid traffic and depends on that level of data to do that effectively, and somebody that likes to use things and use things for free, I'm coming at it from like two perspectives, right? And I'm sure most people watching this are in a similar boat where it's like, hey, we're running ads and we're also using Facebook. But from my perspective, it's always been interesting when I talk to people that are just like huge data privacy nerds. And I don't mean that bad way. Nerds are a good thing. Huge, like data geeks, coding nerds. Like I'm a nerd, right? So, but people that are really into like data privacy, right? And that's their big thing. And they're terrified of Facebook and Google and Big Brother and all this stuff, having all their data. The question I always inevitably ask them is like, would you pay for it, right? So Facebook, I think last year made $89 on advertising revenue per user, right? So basically, if Facebook were to tomorrow just axe advertising, right? So we're going to take away all data. We're not going to share anything with advertisers. We're going to get rid of advertising altogether. Every user on the platform would basically have to pay $89 to keep the company where it is, right? Now, again, some people might say, well, hey, they don't need to make profits, right? The $89 includes like, their bonuses and profits and all these other things. It's not just pure operating expenses. But listen, we're America. We are a capitalist nation and we have entrepreneurship, right? So if you take away the need to like, or the desire to create wealth or profits, that doesn't really incentivize Mark Zuckerberg and co to innovate, right? So that's the other thing. And I don't want to get too down rabbit holes here, but like, it's fascinating to me that there's this whole kind of resurgence in socialism, right? There's this like big push because of AOC and these, kind of super left-leaning Democrats. And I try to say apolitical. Like I really don't have a political preference, right? I think I'm pretty middle of the road. I think most entrepreneurs are pretty middle of the road in terms of politics, right? I think most entrepreneurs are relatively libertarian, right? We're kind of fiscally conservative, socially liberal, and we kind of are in the middle there. So I don't want to get political here. But what's interesting is it's a wave of younger people, like our generation and younger, that are really into socialism now. And they like the idea of like, hey, these people have lots of money and they don't need all that money. And we don't have lots of money because we went to college and graduated with a worthless degree and nobody hires us. And so now, like, I want what they have, right? It's not fair that they have more money than I have. But simultaneously, here's what's interesting about this big push in socialism on the left and pretty much all political movements. They've been fueled by innovations in technology, right? The reason why people like AOC and these really like overnight celebrities have been able to do what they've been able to do is because of innovation and technology, right? Without Instagram, without Facebook, without Apple and their iPhones, without YouTube, without any of these innovations, without AT&T, Verizon having the cell phone infrastructure to have 4G and then 5G, they don't exist, right? Or their movement's a lot slower than it used to be. And so the irony is that like they want to take away the upside for risk takers, but they still want the innovation that those risk takers put money into, right? Like inventing the iPhone, creating Facebook didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen for free, right? It required billions and billions and billions of dollars of capital, both financially, intellectual, and time, to create these innovations, right? That you can now have in your hand for $500 and stream that YouTube video or Facebook Live talking about how the rich shouldn't be richer, right? So I think that hypocrisy is really spread across everything, right? It's this double standard, this hypocrisy where it's like, we want the best of both worlds, right? So a lot of people, when I ask, hey, would you pay $89 a year for Facebook? They're like, well, I shouldn't have to pay for Facebook. Or they say yes. And the reality is they wouldn't, right? So most people say, sure, I'd be more than happy to pay $89 for Facebook if it meant that I'd have to see ads. Which I think it's easy to say that. It's harder when you actually have to put your credit card into Facebook to use it, right? I think if you start charging for Facebook, it does two things. One is it's actually not $89 because remember, Facebook is used by billions of people around the world. We are so fortunate to live in America. We are so fortunate to live in a country where, we can have Netflix and HBO and all these things. Like most countries that use Facebook don't even have access to basic things, basic necessities, basic things that we take for granted, right? So assuming that they could pay $89 a month is absurd. So the actual cost would probably be in the hundreds of dollars a year because you got to factor that, several billion people on Facebook probably can't afford the $89. So we would have to subsidize their usage of Facebook through our subscriptions, right? So you actually would probably pay more than $89 a year because of that subsidy you'd have to incur for everyone else. Unless you just want to be a dick and just say, well, I think Facebook should charge. And I think, hey, it sucks for you if you live in a third world or second world country and you can't afford $89 a year. Sorry, you can't use Facebook anymore, right? So you're a bad person then if you're doing that. I think that's one thing. I think the second thing is part of the value of social networks is that everybody uses it, right? A social network with one person is of no value, right? It's the network effect. So that's why Facebook and these platforms grow exponentially because as the user base grows, especially in that mid stage, it brings in other people, adds more value at an exponential rate, right? However, if all of a sudden Facebook decides we're going to charge $89 a year per user, and now some of your best friends, some family members, some of your work colleagues just say, I can't afford $89 a year, and they just don't use Facebook anymore, are you going to keep using Facebook? I think the answer there is probably no, right? So it has less, you actually start paying more money for it because again, now you're subsidizing it even at a higher level. So your costs go up and the value goes down. So you all of a sudden get in this place where right now it's, hey, you're paying nothing. What you're paying essentially your eyeballs and your attention for advertisers. That's what you're paying, but you're not paying anything out of pocket. The beauty of that is that everybody gets to use it. It has the network effect, right? There's no subsidies. Third world countries don't lose access to it. People that depend on it don't lose access to it. So when there's emergencies or avalanches or cyclones or volcanoes, Facebook can be Facebook has been an integral part of those first responders, right? When a disaster happens, like when the Pulse nightclub shooting happened here, Facebook was the first to let people know, right? I got notified first on Facebook, then the news. And Facebook started bringing people together. It started connecting loved ones together. It started allowing you to say you're okay. So family and friends that live states away knew you weren't dead, right? And so we like to pick fun and poke holes at Facebook for their greed and their big brother, all the stuff they do. At the same time, though, we don't talk about all the great things the platform has done, right? The fact that, hey, you don't pay for that. Like Facebook, is paying for that innovation. They built that emergency response center that has allowed loved ones to get connected and to make sure when a disaster happens, first responders have as much access to data as possible, that they can notify the masses as quickly as possible. Like that's just one little thing that Facebook has done that's helped society, right? So I think there is this interesting hypocrisy that happens when people start thinking it's like an entitlement, right? It's like, I deserve to have this, but I don't want to pay for it, right? Or I'll pay for it down the road. And so I think we're in this interesting period where we've been there needs to be a massive shift, in my opinion. I think we're in this weird kind of path where some of the stuff we pay for, but a lot of the stuff we use we don't pay for. We don't really know how it's paid for, right? It's kind of murky. So Netflix. I think Netflix is a great example that from day one, Netflix charged, right? And Netflix has always been a paid program, right? They've never done the ad model. And that's been great for Netflix. But then you have all the other models out there, which are basically your data is your credit card, right? So you're essentially, your way to pay to play, your way to use the platform is you're exchanging your data for usage, right? So all those expensive servers, all those expensive engineers building the features you love to use, all the office space that holds them, all of that you are paying for with your data, right? It doesn't just get paid for magically, right? Mark Zuckerberg doesn't just fund the company himself and that's it. So it's interesting. I think we're gonna see a if you get this is one thing. If you call somebody and they ignore, they hang up, don't keep calling in. This person has called me 3 times in a row. I've hung up every time, and it's been funny. But I am genuinely interested to hear what other people's thoughts are. I'm going on a kind of rant and tangent here, but I would love in the comments to hear what other people think about this data privacy issue. Because what I can say is, so that's just from like pure economics of a platform, right? So we talked about it for a second. $89 is basically the ad revenue per user on Facebook. So just to do a clean swap, it would be, $89 every user have to play. But like I said before, that's assuming that everybody that uses Facebook can afford that. So the reality is that most people who use Facebook can't afford $89 a year, which means that you're going to have to now kind of average up what all the people that can afford to pay are going to have to pay to subsidize everyone else, unless you want to be just as evil as these big companies and basically make it a platform where, hey, sorry, you live in a poor country, you can't afford Facebook. Sorry about that. And we're not going to subsidize you. So if you want to do that, then you can keep paying $89. But if you want to be the Good Samaritan, like everyone tries to be, because everyone comes out of the woodwork when there's press, when there's, it's interesting. Like whenever there's a hot button issue, whether it's politics, whether it's, the economy, whatever it might be, like all of a sudden everybody has an opinion and they all care now because people are talking about it and they want to be heard, right? I think most people are, one, they're ill-informed and they just simply don't know the facts and they just talk because they like to talk, even if their opinion is just totally uneducated. I think you also then have people who love the spotlight and they share things. What's up, Warren? How's it going? They share things because they can go viral and because people are listening, right? I think most people, and again, this is just my opinion, are okay. Like they might make a fuss about it, but at the end of the day, they are much more willing to, or they like not paying for things and getting all this value for free, even if it means their data gets taken and used, than having to pay for all these things, right? Because imagine like let's say you get your dream, right? You're the data privacy warrior, right? And tomorrow you go to Google and you want to search for that steak recipe or that how to swaddle my baby or whatever it is, how to find this home. And you got to pay $5 to do a search. Or it's a little pop-up hits you and says, ooh, that's $29 a month. And then you go to Facebook and you want to look at photos from your friend's wedding. Ooh, you got to sign up for an account. That's $89 a year. And then you got to go to YouTube because you want to watch cute cat and puppy videos. Ooh, that's $59 a year, right? Like, I guarantee you do that switch and people get hit with 3 or 4 of those, they're going to be, holy shit, I got to pay for all of these services? Are you kidding me? I got to pay for Facebook, and I got to pay for YouTube, and I got to pay to use Google, and I got to pay to send a tweet, and I got to pay to go on Instagram and look at photos. Like, it's so easy to sit on your kind of high horse and just like snipe. Be like, Facebook's evil, right? Facebook's using our data and they're giving it to advertisers. They're evil. They should not have advertising. They shouldn't share data. And we should, we'll pay for Facebook. It's so easy to say that, but I guarantee you, if that ever did happen, they would be the exact same people saying, this is bullshit. These platforms should be free. It's not fair that we have to pay for it. Mark Zuckerberg pays himself a lot. They get profits, all this stuff. Like this should be a utility, right? That's the other argument. Like these should just be utilities. But the problem is when you again, that socialistic mindset, like I would love to live in a world, right? I would love to live in a world where people do things because it's the right thing, right? Everybody just works for the common good and we're all out there. And Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook because he said, you know what the world needs? The world needs a social network that could connect people around the world. And the world needs the ability to tag their photos and to look at Instagram photos. Like that's what the world needs. And so I'm going to invest the next decade of my life and all my money to build this for the social good. Like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, sure, that's a great thought, right? It would be awesome if we lived in a world where everybody didn't have greed, or weren't selfish, or didn't think about themselves first and thought about the collective. But let's be real, right? That is not the world we live in, right? We don't live in a world where it's not rainbows and unicorns, right? Where everybody just is out for the collective, some hive mind. That's not the way it works, right? The way it works is people work initially in what they think is going to be best for them, right? People have their self-interest at heart, usually, to start, right? And so they want to have upside. They want to make money. They want to gain fame. They want to, whatever that is that's going to make them fulfill them. They want to do that. And I think that's a good thing, right? Because even if that's their initial goal, is I'm doing this because I want to make money. If that means that we get Elon Musk's and we get Mark Zuckerberg's and we get Peter Thiel's and we get Tim Cook's and Steve Jobs and we get these people who go out there and they take massive risk instead of going and working a 9-to-5 job and build companies that take us to space and build companies that solve our fossil fuel crisis and build companies that connect everybody on the planet. And they did it because they wanted to make money. Is that really such a bad thing? Right? Because I guarantee you, if there was no financial incentive, if there was no self-interest, if there was nothing in the beginning that incentivized or motivated the individual to go out and take risks, everybody would basically do the bare minimum for the most part, right? And you can see that if you look at any example of any socialist country or any example like that. Are there Elon Musk's? Are there Mark Zuckerberg's? Are there groundbreaking innovations that happen? No, not, at least not that I know of. And so I think it's like we need to live in reality, and we can't live in this like idealistic like utopia of what we think everyone should be. Because the reality is we can think this is the way things should be, and we can think that people should do the right thing and think about the bigger picture, but that's not what's going to make, like, that's not how the world's going to operate, right? That's like saying, like, you know what, I think 2 + 2 should equal 5, and I think 3 × 3 should equal 20, and you know, I think that everybody should get a TV, and I think that everybody should have free cable, and I think that everyone should have free food. Like, I can think those things, and that's interesting to think. Doesn't make them real. Doesn't mean that they're gonna work, right? Because there's just reality, and then there's your dreams. And so I think with this data privacy discussion, a lot of people are operating under these like idealistic utopias, right, of where they think things should be. Now, again, what I'm saying is like that just because something isn't real today doesn't mean we shouldn't like strive for it, right? Like, we shouldn't, just because it's not possible right now doesn't mean that like that's not a world we should try to live in, where more people operate for the greater good. The problem though is that like in reality, if you look at how philanthropy operates and how like most big like charities are kind of run, usually, and again, this is just usually, it's not every example, it's somebody who came from nothing, was incentivized by capitalism, built something amazing, made lots of money, and now has the freedom and the resources to do big things, right? You look at Bill Gates, you look at Warren Buffett, you look at these people who, hey, they busted their ass for decades and took huge risks and made lots of money. And now they're able to give and help and create nonprofits and charities and solve different massive problems around the world. Like, that's how a lot of it operates, right? If it was as easy as just people that came out of college or high school and had no resources and they could go and just solve massive problems, we would see massive problems being solved. But it's very hard to go to Africa and solve famine, right? If you have no money, you have no connections, you have no expertise, how do you do that? You really can't. Bill Gates has billions of dollars. He has massive teams of people. He has decades of experience and connections and resources with local governments, statewide governments, nationwide governments. Like, he can make things happen, and more people like him can make things happen. Like me, if I decided after I graduated college that I'm going to go solve, you know, some massive issue, like, that's very commendable, and that's great. There are people that do that, but the impact is negligible, right? My impact is significantly higher if I spend the next 20 years making as much money as possible, building a massive network, a lot of connections at high levels, and then I take our money and me and Larissa go and do big things with it. We start a nonprofit and foundation, and our goal is to help, we want to help kids that are aging out of basically like group homes and stuff that are now 17, 18, no longer have the resources. They're now just kicked out on their ass. They have no life skills, no social skills, no education, and they just get put out there, right? Like, I can't do much for those people right now, but in a few years, after I've made tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, I can do some amazing things for those individuals. I can build an educational center that can provide educational resources and classes and resources and job training. Like, that's something I can do. So for me to like be incentivized in a capitalist society to generate wealth, knowing that then I can do that and make a bigger impact, I don't think that's a bad thing. So I know we kind of went down this rabbit hole, but again, back to like the Facebook example with data privacy, it's the same thing. It's as a advertiser, I need to have this. I need to have the data to make it make sense financially for me. And if it doesn't make sense financially, I'm going to go as an advertiser. I'm going to find somewhere else that does it. Because here's the truth. And this is the other thing with people that complain about data. You can bitch at Facebook all you want. And Facebook has made they pull a lot of stuff back that's made my job a lot harder and a lot of advertisers' jobs harder. Guess what's happening? We're moving to Snapchat. And we're getting the same data you just complained about, right? So the truth is that you can complain and you can whine and you can say, Facebook shouldn't have my data and it's not fair and it's not right. It's my data, not their data. Truth is, you agreed to share data when you sign up for the platform. Nobody forced you to join Facebook. Nobody forced you to use Facebook or Instagram or Google. You use it voluntarily. You can go if you want to research stuff, go to the library, right? Go to the library and go look through books. They won't take your data and you can spend 100 times longer to find the same things. But we make choices. We live in a free world. We live in a free country where I get to make choices of how I use my money, how I use how I exchange resources, right? And my data is a resource. My data is an asset that I can exchange for other things. And so when I sign up for iTunes or Facebook or Instagram or any of these platforms, I am saying, hey, I'm willing to exchange my data to use your expensive platform for free. That's a totally voluntary deal that you, I, and everyone else uses Facebook, Google, all these platforms enters into when we sign up. And you're more than welcome to just stop using Facebook, right? That's the thing what's amazing is like, it's as if Facebook is the only way we can live our life, right? All of us, we were fine 10 years ago before Facebook, right? The world it operated, went through our day. We were able to have friends and fall in love and get jobs and do all these things without Facebook, without Google, without YouTube. You don't need it. So if you're really that upset about data, if you're really that infuriated about, hey, it's bullshit that Max Finn gets to use my data and retarget me on Facebook and I hate that and it's not fair, just stop using it, right? Stop using Facebook. But I guarantee you, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to find another way to get your data, right? Because guess what? You use Snapchat, and guess where I'm advertising now? Snapchat. And guess what? Because nobody focused on Snapchat the last year, Snapchat has more data than Facebook does. That's why we're using Snapchat ads now. Because Snapchat, all the data that Facebook got rid of because you guys complained, because users complained, Snapchat just like, well, nobody complained about us. We're going to use it, right? And so Snapchat now gives me access to everything. I can target based on household income, based on whether you shop on Amazon or you shop at Best Buy, based on whether you just got out of a relationship, based on whether you just got a mortgage, based on what insurance you have. I can target you based on all of that. And so guess what's going to happen too? If people start complaining about Snapchat and get up in arms, there'll be a new platform that comes out and they'll do the exact same thing. And I'll move to that one. And every advertiser will move to that one. So it's all it does is put a momentary pause or slow down on specific ad platforms, but it doesn't change anything. It's no individual or group of individuals that's going to stop this. The only way to stop it is for all people that use these free services to stop using them, right? So if it was a massive walkout where everybody just decided that tomorrow all of us are going to sign out of Facebook and we're going to sign out of YouTube, and we're going to sign out, we're going to stop using Google and start using libraries again. Maybe then you can make change. But the reality is, where we're at today and where we're going to be the next several years at minimum, data and advertising subsidizes usage of these platforms. They're expensive platforms. They're expensive to run. They're expensive to operate. They're expensive to grow. All those hearts you want to hit, and all those dog photos you want to share, and all those makeup tutorials you want to look at, and all those, fail videos you watch on YouTube, and all those Google searches you do, right? It's not free. It costs those companies money for you to do that, right? So either you pay for it in cash or you pay for it in data. So that's a big thing, right? And I think it's really, really important to understand that, it's not going to change. We're just going to move platform to platform. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. So what now has ended up happening is, because unless it moves to a full subscription model, it's just going to make everybody worse. It's just going to make the experience worse for everybody. So the middle ground is a terrible place to be, because the middle ground means that we still have to run ads. Ads are still how you get your use of the service paid for. But now, because you push Facebook so far, and Congress has pushed Facebook so far, Facebook has pulled back a lot of targeting options, which means that me as an advertiser, or these big brands, they now have to run ads much more broadly, less targeted ads, right? So that means, instead of you opening opening Facebook or Instagram and seeing a really great ad for that skincare company you've been following with a discount code, super relevant, super valuable, now you get a discount code for a really great product you want to use. Now you're going to start seeing ads for Mountain Dew. You never drink Mountain Dew. You're going to start seeing ads for women's yoga apparel, right? And you're a dude, right? Or you're a 65-year-old grandma. You're going to start seeing less and less relevant ads, which make the overall experience way worse and embarrassing, right? If you're on Facebook and all of a sudden you see some embarrassing ads and your friends are watching you, oh no, I don't look at this stuff, I promise. They don't know that. So that's what's really interesting. I think the byproduct of this is that it's literally it's going to make the whole experience worse for everybody. Because advertisers, the small advertisers, they might get pushed out, right? They might not be able to make it work financially anymore because you've crushed all their targeting options and made it less competitive. They're less competitive. But the big brands, the big companies, they don't care, right? They have billions of dollars to spend a year on ads. They don't care if they lose some specific targeting. They just want to saturate the audience. So you're going to continue to see ads from them. They're just going to be less relevant ads. And I guess that's what's interesting is I would rather use a platform where the ads I see are very, very targeted and really valuable and personalized than a platform where the ads I see are totally irrelevant and not valuable at all to me. Because it's you're not going to stop seeing ads altogether. You're just going to start seeing crappier ads and less valuable ads. And that's the really interesting part for me is why would we want to see less relevant ads? It's gotten to the point now where a lot of ads that I was seeing were really on point, really valuable. A lot weren't even selling me stuff. It was just here's really great content to read. Here's a really great ebook to look at. Here's a promo code to use for this really cool product I've been looking at for weeks or months. To me, that adds value to me as a user of the platform. And so it's almost like moving backwards, right? Facebook and its platforms have invested so much money over the last decade to build these really powerful ad engines with the goal of obviously making more money, but also delivering more personalized ads and a more personalized experience to users. So I think we're going to start seeing that potentially. If there continues to be a push down this way, we're going to see a move to other platforms. So you'll just be doing it on Snapchat instead of Facebook. And you'll also see less and less relevant ads on Facebook and on these platforms. If you take away, the worst one is what Tim Cook's talking about, which is trying to block the pixel, which I think is just the dumbest shit ever. I love Apple. I'm a huge Apple fan. But personally, Tim Cook's view on data privacy makes me sick. Because they are the ultimate hypocrites, Apple. Apple has ungodly power. They have more power over us and everybody else than anybody imagines, right? That's what's terrifying. Apple's trying to play this ooh, we're the good guys. Facebook and Google are too powerful and we need to do something about it. Here's the thing. If Apple tomorrow decided, you know what, I don't think we want Facebook on App Store anymore, they could destroy Facebook almost overnight. They could say, you know what, I don't think we want Google, any of their apps on iPhones or iPads or Macs anymore. So let's just remove them from the App Store. Like, that's way more terrifying to me than Facebook having some data. And if you think for a second that like Apple doesn't listen to your data and doesn't store your data and doesn't analyze your data and doesn't sell ads to people in the App Store, you're just an idiot. So that's been the really interesting one for me, is looking at Apple's response to this. They try to play like the good cop, like, oh, these guys are monsters and stuff. It is, and again, it hurts me to say that because I'm a huge Apple fan. I have every Apple product. I love Apple, but like their position on this has been so hypocritical and so ass backwards and just so wrong on so many levels that they just don't want people diving into them because they have way more power than they should, because they can literally overnight shut down pretty much any company. Like, that's terrifying to me. Like, one company could almost overnight pretty much bankrupt any company in the world. Pretty crazy, right? Like, literally any company. Any company. Think about, name a company. If Apple took their app off their iPhones and App Store, it would at least cut the company in half. And most startups and stuff, most venture-backed companies can't handle that. They haven't forecasted or budgeted or done the risk mitigation forecasting for that. So yeah, like, I think that's very scary. But yeah, so I know I went on a quite the rant and tangent today, but it is something that I'm passionate about. I think everybody I'm all for debates and discussions, and I think everyone should have an opinion. I believe in free speech and everyone I love to disagree with people. I think it's great. That's what makes our country so amazing. The issue I do have is when people have opinions that are just highly uninformed, right? I will debate and have a great discussion with somebody who disagrees with me 100% all day long, if I know that they're really well informed, because I want to learn stuff, right? I want to hear from the other side. The problem is almost every person I've heard complain about the way Facebook has their data and stuff, it's just emotional. There's no substance or fact or data backing what they're saying. They're just saying it because they know it'll get likes and engagement, because it's the hot thing to say, and there's really no substance backing it. So for me as an advertiser, I think if there's not a change, at least on the Facebook side of things, in terms of giving us back access they took, you're just going to see a continued stream away from Facebook to Snapchat to other platforms, which we're already doing. We're already moving more and more ad spend to Snapchat, because Snapchat now has all the data people complain about Facebook having. Snapchat has now, and nobody knows about it. So you're just going to see a greater move away. So the people that complain on Facebook are going to see the same ads on Snapchat now. So you're going to see that. And I think, at the end of the day, there's going to have to be a transition at some point, either that we're continuing down this kind of free economy where data is the currency, or a move more towards the Netflix model where it's, hey, to get access, you got to pay. I think that's the only way, in my opinion, like a lot of these media companies can survive, is to move away from that free ad subsidized model to a subscription model where, hey, if you want great content, if you want all this value, you got to pay for it. And because you don't want to pay with your data, you got to pay with cash. That's the way the world works. You don't get things for free. I know a lot of people would love, especially nowadays, to get things for free. Live in a socialist country where I basically get the same thing that the hardest working people get. Not going to happen. I pray to God it never happens, because that will be just a terrible, terrible place to live. And for me, it'll basically make the last decade of my life worthless, right? So that's what people don't think about. Like, I've busted my ass the last 10 years to build something, to be an entrepreneur, to get to that point where I can have the freedom to do what I want when I want. And, for the last 10 years, I've begged, borrowed, and stealed to pay rent, to make ends meet every month after month after month. And so if you take away that, right, where everyone just gets everything, what was the point, right? Then I could have just done the same thing that most people did, which is just, taking the easy way out, got a, 9-to-5 job, stopped taking the risk because I wanted the safe route, and we all get the same things. So yeah, that's just my thought on that.